Find the dimensions of a right circular cylinder of maximum volume that can be inscribed inside a sphere with a radius of 10 centimeters. All right, so let's go ahead and try to draw our sphere, right? So a sphere is, of course, just a ball, right? It's a three-dimensional ball, I guess, right? A little something like this. We know that the radius is 10 centimeters, okay? And what we're going to do is we're actually going to inscribe, right? So inscribe means that there's going to be a cylinder inside the sphere, okay? And of course, what's going to happen is the corners, right? The corners touch the sphere, right? So these corners are touching the sphere. So we want to find, okay, we want to find what is the dimensions of this cylinder, okay? That is the largest cylinder we can inscribe in this sphere with a radius of 10. Okay, so a couple things going on here. We do have two shapes. We have the sphere and this cylinder. Okay, so this 10, it has to be important somewhere, right? We'll figure that out later. But the right circular cylinder, what is the volume of a right circular cylinder? It's pi r squared h. Okay, in this case, we have the radius of the cylinder, which is this guy. We have the height of the cylinder, which is going to be this guy here. Okay, so, well, we can take the derivative of this guy, but there's two variables here, which is no good, right? So we have to somehow get r and h related to each other, right? What is the relationship between r and h? Okay, and that's where the sphere comes into play here. Okay, so let's do this, right? If we take the center, right? Let's say we're right at the center and we go here. Okay, then we know that this is 10. Okay, this is going to be 10 because that is the radius of the sphere. Okay, but take a look, right? If we draw a shape like this is r. And this is actually going to be half of the height. Okay, so what does that tell us? What is this relationship? The relationship is that r squared plus h over 2 squared is equal to 10 squared here. Okay, and then we can use this formula to relate r and h. So from here we can do a couple things, right? We can solve this for h, or we can solve this for r and put it back into this equation for volume. It looks like in this case, it's going to be a lot easier to solve this for r squared, right? Because we already see that r squared. So let's do that. R squared is going to equal, well, 10 squared is 100, and then we'll just call that r h squared over 4. Okay, so now let's go ahead and plug that in, right? The volume is going to be pi times h times r squared, which is 100 minus h squared over 4. So that means our volume is going to be 100 pi h minus pi times h cubed over 4. Okay, so this is the equation for our volume of this right circular cylinder. You notice that we have only one variable in here, right? We've expressed r squared in terms of h. Okay, so what is the derivative of this guy, right? The derivative, okay, with respect to h in this case, we're going to get what? 100 pi. And then in this case, bring down to 3, right? Subtract 1 from that, we get 3/4 pi times h squared. And that's actually pretty good because, well, we can just solve this guy for h squared, right? We'll set this equal to 0 and solve this for h. Okay, so we get 3 over 4 pi h squared equals 100 pi. So in this case, it'll be the easiest thing to do would just be multiply by 4/3 on both sides. Okay. And we see that the pi's do cancel out. Okay, so we end up with h squared equals 400 over 3. So once we take the square root of that, right, h would become the square root of 400 over 3, which as a decimal is approximately 11.55. And that is the height of this cylinder here. Okay. What about the radius? Well, we just got to plug this in, right? So we know that r squared equals 100 minus h squared over 4. So when we plug that in, okay, then we get the radius, which is approximately 8.16. And these numbers do work out, right? Because we know that the radius of this huge sphere, right, the big sphere is equal to 10. Okay, from here to here should be 10, right? So that tells us, okay, the radius of this cylinder got to be less than 10. We know that, right? And in this case, yes, 8.16. And the height, okay, 11.55, that's good as well. Okay, so this right circular cylinder with a radius of 8.16 centimeters and a height of 11.55 centimeters that is inscribed in this sphere, right? This would be the cylinder with the largest volume.